The rain fell in thin, whispering sheets over the cobbled streets of northern England. Beyond the curve of the old countryside road stood St. Alden's University, abandoned for nearly 3 decades. The once prestigious institution now lay in silence, its towers veiled in ivy, its windows black and hollow. Locals claimed that after nightfall strange lights flickered in the upper halls and faint screams drifted through the fog. Few dared to go near, and those who did never stayed long enough to speak clearly about what they saw. Inside the nearby village pub, 4 friends, Eleanor, Mark, James, and Sophie, sat around a wooden table, the fire crackling beside them. The storm outside made the windows rattle, but it was the old caretaker's story that chilled them most. He spoke of a professor who vanished during a mysterious fire that destroyed the East Wing decades ago. They said his soul still roamed the corridors, searching for his final lecture notes. Eleanor laughed nervously, brushing it off, yet something in her eyes betrayed curiosity. That night, with youthful defiance and too much wine, the group decided to see the university for themselves. The drive through the countryside felt endless. Their headlights cut through thick fog, revealing crumbling stone walls and rusted gates. A cold wind howled as they stepped out of the car, their breath visible in the air. The gates creaked open as if welcoming them. Beyond it, the grand entrance loomed. Tall doors of oak, chained loosely, as if someone once tried to keep something inside, not out. They slipped through the gap and entered the main hall. Their footsteps echoed against marble floors littered with dust and broken glass. Moonlight filtered through shattered windows, casting long shadows on the cracked portraits of past deans. The air smelled of old paper, mold, and something faintly metallic, like blood. Sophie shivered and whispered, "Let's not go too far." But Eleanor, drawn by unseen curiosity, pressed on toward the east wing, the site of the old fire. The corridor leading there was darker than the rest. The wallpaper was peeled, exposing blackened bricks beneath. As they walked, James thought he heard footsteps that didn't belong to them. He turned sharply, but nothing was there, only the faint echo of a door closing somewhere in the distance. "Probably the wind," Mark muttered, though his voice trembled. They continued until they reached a heavy iron door, marked East Lecture Hall. Its handle was cold as ice. When Eleanor pushed it open, a gust of cold air swept past them, extinguishing their flashlight for a brief second. Inside, the hall was charred and half collapsed, rows of burnt chairs frozen in silence. At the far end stood a blackboard, and on it, written in faded chalk, were the words, "Class dismissed." Sophie gasped. No one had been here for decades. "Who wrote that?" she whispered. But before anyone could answer, the sound of faint scratching came from behind the board. Mark stepped closer, heart pounding. The noise grew louder, a dragging sound like nails against wood. Suddenly a shadow moved across the wall, long and distorted. They froze. Then came the smell of smoke. Thin tendrils of fog seemed to twist from the corners of the room, carrying the faint echo of a man's voice reciting something. "We must finish the lesson." The voice was hollow, almost distant, as though spoken from another time. Eleanor whispered, "Professor Hale." Was that his name? James nodded slowly, recalling the caretaker's story. Before they could move, the door behind them slammed shut with a deafening bang. Sophie screamed, rushing to open it, but it wouldn't budge. The room grew colder. Frost formed on the edges of the broken windows. Then, a figure appeared near the blackboard, faint at first, like smoke gathering into shape. A man in a tattered academic robe, his face pale and burned, eyes hollow yet intelligent. He raised one shaking hand, pointing toward them. "You shouldn't have come here," he rasped. His voice echoed unnaturally, repeating itself in the walls. Mark backed away, tripping over a broken desk. Eleanor, trembling, tried to speak. "We didn't mean to disturb you." The figure tilted his head. "Then why are you here?" he whispered. The candles, half buried in ash, flickered to life by themselves, casting orange light over his skeletal face. Suddenly flames erupted along the walls. Not real, but memories of the fire replaying in front of them. They saw ghostly students screaming, running through the halls, the professor trying to save them before being consumed by smoke. Eleanor clutched her chest, realizing they were witnessing the final moments of that night. Then just as quickly the vision vanished. Only the burnt hall remained, silent and black. The professor's ghost looked down, sadness in his eyes. "They never listened," he murmured. "And now, no one leaves." His form began to waver. A chilling wind burst through the room, scattering papers and dust. James grabbed Eleanor's arm, shouting, "We need to go, now." They forced the door open, stumbling into the corridor. Behind them, the ghost's whisper followed. "Class dismissed." They ran through the hallways, the old university alive with echoes. Doors slammed, portraits turned their heads, and faint laughter followed their footsteps. Mark dropped the flashlight. It rolled across the floor, revealing dozens of handprints, blackened, as if burned into the walls. Sophie cried out, "Please let us out." The exit loomed ahead, but the shadows seemed to stretch, pulling them back. Eleanor turned and saw the ghost once more at the corridor's end. This time he looked calmer, almost peaceful. "You saw the truth," he said softly. "Tell them what happened. Don't let the fire die again." Then he faded into the mist. The wind fell silent. The doors opened by themselves, releasing them into the cold night. Outside, they collapsed beside the car, gasping for air. The fog around the university shimmered faintly, as if the building itself were breathing. They drove away in silence, no one daring to speak. In the rearview mirror, Eleanor thought she saw a faint glow in the university windows, the shape of a man still standing by the blackboard. Weeks later, when police investigated after hearing reports of intruders, they found something strange. The blackboard in the East Hall was spotless, except for one fresh line written in white chalk. "Welcome to the new semester." The days that followed were quiet, almost too quiet. Eleanor tried to convince herself that what they saw was just their imagination, a trick of the mind in a decaying building. But at night she'd wake suddenly, hearing faint whispers, the sound of chalk against a board. Sometimes she'd find her bedroom light flickering, and on her desk her university notes rearranged to spell, "You promised." Mark and James tried to move on, but both began to suffer from vivid nightmares. In their dreams, they were back in the East Hall, the professor standing before them, repeating the same line, "Class dismissed." One morning, Mark didn't show up for work. When police entered his flat, they found his walls covered in equations and notes from St. Alden's written in chalk. The strange thing was, Mark never studied mathematics. Sophie, shaken and withdrawn, disappeared a week later. Her phone was found near the gates of the old university, still recording. The last few seconds of the video showed her whispering, "He's calling me. He says the lesson isn't over." Then the screen went black, and faint laughter echoed before the recording ended. Eleanor returned one last time. She told herself it was to find answers, but deep down, she knew it was something else. The same pull that drew her there the first night. When she reached the gates, they were already open. The fog was thicker, and through it, she could see the faint orange glow of candlelight from the East Hall. She walked in slowly, her footsteps echoing in perfect rhythm with another set she couldn't see. Inside the lecture room, the blackboard was clean again. A single piece of chalk lay on the ledge. Eleanor hesitated, then picked it up. Her hand trembled as she wrote 3 words. "I am here." The air turned icy cold. Behind her, a familiar voice whispered, "Welcome back." The semester never ends. The doors closed on their own. Outside, the wind fell still,